everyone. I think I'm finally here. Okay, when in doubt, when everything tries to kick you off and tell you your connection is poor, this is how you fix it. Turn off your whole phone and reboot it. It just took me, 18 minutes to figure out that maybe I should just turn off my phone and start from scratch. So the good news is that we're in business now. The bad news is I left you all hanging and waiting for a good 15 minutes. I am so sorry about that. I guess it was my turn. A lot of our awesome guests have run into bad computer karma, bad tech issues. So I guess today it was my turn to not be able to connect. But anyway, I'm really glad that this worked out now because I'm super excited to talk to tonight's guest. You would find her on Instagram as Tomes and Textiles, which is such a fun name, and it's basically pages and paper and transcripts and textiles, cloth, right? So she's all about clothes and books, and she turns to fashion as an art form to help support the ideas and the images behind the books that she blogs about. It's so interesting because back in the day, right? We had to learn about books from magazines or newspapers and read a book critic's column and their review. And that's the only way that we would really find out, what a book was about, what people were thinking about. Now we have social media and we have bookstagrammers. And honestly, it is such an amazing way to find out what books are out there because first of all, they read so much. More books than I can even imagine. So we are going to pick Carmen's brain a little bit about how she squeezes so many books in her day, why she picks the book that she does to talk about, and what she hopes to do with that platform. But she's been waiting for me now for, 15 minutes? And now I'm back in business. Here she is. Yay. All right. Here we go. You are the most patient human.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. This is welcome to the very first technical difficulties that I've had. I don't know why they just did that to me and to you. Not fair.
Well, at least we're here now. It's so nice to see you.
It's nice to see you too. And I guess if anybody understands the challenges of going live on Instagram or how technology can get in the way of what you want to do, it's probably you because this is your house. This is your playground. This is where you connect with all of your fans, your viewers, your followers. So
Yeah.
For people who don't know you, Carmen, you go by Tomes and Textiles. I was talking a little bit about the name and how those two things came together. But I would rather everybody hear it from you because the artwork that you create when you're promoting and sharing a book that you love is just amazing. You're basically the mind and the model.
Well, that's a very kind introduction. I guess the name came from love of clothes and love of books.
Yeah.
And it was actually going to be a side project with a friend. We had a blog previously, and it kind of never came about because we had a lot of ideas and not a lot of time to do stuff.
It's hard.
Yeah, I know it is. It's really hard to do stuff on your own. And then when you add someone else's schedule in, it can get crazy. And so when I was like, hey, let's keep our old name because we may come back to it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, we have this great name that we thought of. We never did anything. And she was like, take it. So it was a joint effort with a friend who very graciously let me hold on to it.
So here you are in all your beautiful clothes with all your beautiful books. And my bookshelf is quite skimpy by comparison. I mean, How far down your wall does that bookshelf go? The whole wall?
So,
rooms?
Yeah, so it's not 2 rooms. I have 5 bookshelves. I have 5 bookshelves, and that's all I'm allowed to have. So they get smushed in very tightly, and I have to come up with ways to fit more in all the time, because at first I was like 50 books, and then I was like 50 books, that isn't anything. So I have 5 shelves in 2 different rooms just because I don't have room in one room to have them all, and they're kind of mix and match. So these are like the IKEA Billy bookshelves, and this has like feminist books and my Latinx books and everything on here. And then I have 3 mismatched like older bookshelves, and they contain everything else. So
all of the other books that you love. I read a study, Carmen, the other day that 86% of millennials and Gen Zers want to be an influencer. You know, that is the new top goal. Mm-hmm. And many of them said that they wanted to do that. They'd promote products. They would want to kind of team up with a brand. But what's interesting about being an influencer is it doesn't necessarily have to do with selling something. It's about influencing ideas. And so essentially that's what you've become. You're an influencer in the book world, and your platform is to show people the diverse authors who are out there. Mm-hmm. Was that always the goal, or did that happen when you realized, you know, you were stumbling on books that maybe people didn't know about?
So I think it was kind of like, you know, I've been on here for like 5 years now. And I think what I noticed is that I liked a lot of different books. I've always liked a lot of different books. And what I started to notice is like, I was like, I'm posting what everyone else is posting. And I felt like I didn't have a message. I felt like I was kind of following along with the trends and things like that. So what happened is that I was like, well, obviously, like there's certain books that I'm reading that don't seem to have bigger marketing budgets or any marketing budget. So I was like, I'm going to show that, because I don't think I have enough time to show everything that I read. So I just kind of started curating what I started to show. And then I wanted to do lists of books and things like that, because those are things that interest me, like making lists for whatever reason. So yeah, I guess I'm always attracted to, I don't know how to say this without sounding weird, but like I'm always attracted to like what's not popular. I've always been like that. And so that was like a thing. I was like, well,
the hidden treasures and the underdog. That's what we'll call it.
I like hunting for vintage clothes. And yeah. I think that for books, especially, like there's voices that aren't being heard, like for whatever reason, they're just not prioritized and getting out there. And so I started getting interested in promoting those voices, and they happen to be a lot of marginalized voices and things like that. And I found out a lot about myself and my identity as a Latinx person. So then I started kind of shouting more and more about like books by Latinx authors that I identify with. So I don't know, it was a matter of just kind of finding my footing. I kind of stumbled along the way. This is definitely very much a hobby. So
yeah, it's funny though, because the hobby, when you love it, that's what gets noticed. And the folks who are watching right now, hi everybody, YATV Live, the lovely people of YATV Live just said the lesson here is to be different. And I think that that's so important, because we do see what people are doing, and our first instinct might be, I want to do that too, or even I want to do that better. And then we wind up getting lost and not being different. But it has to be something that resonates with you. And I know that sometimes it can be hard. You know, for me, growing up, my dad's from India, my mom's from Maine. Depending on how tan or how blonde or dark I am any given day, I could be pretty much any given ethnicity you want. And growing up in high school, I wanted to just be an average high schooler. I didn't want to stand out or be different. And I remember that my roommate in college, I was going out one night, and I couldn't figure out what to wear. And she starts going through my jewelry. She's like, why aren't you wearing all this beautiful Indian stuff? And I was like, oh, that? I don't know. I don't know. And I started to really, it started in small ways. And it's funny that it's fashion in a sense, because that's what you identify with too. But it helped me finding my look helped me find myself. And I know it might sound sort of shallow that it was a surface thing, but I needed to see myself a little bit differently.
And I think clothing too, it's very much an armor, and it can be very much your armor. It can be very much like, you know, it's one of the first things people notice about you when you walk into a room and things like that. And, you know, I think for different people, it means different things for sure. And I think for me, like my goal has always been like figure out a way to, you know, like be in pajamas, but like live my life and like have my professional life. Whatever. So I'm always wearing some version of a pajama or something that could be a pajama, and I'm hoping
something comfy.
as I get older, like I can be more comfortable. But you know, it's you know, I mean, you dress for the occasion and things like that. And I know like Halloween and costumes and all that are coming up. But, like, you know, it can very much be like your costume every day if you wanted to. I enjoy getting dressed. My parents let me start getting dressed way too young, and I've always loved clothes. So it's something from when I was a small child that I really loved, and so I've kind of carried it through. And then it's been great in COVID to share my closet with everyone, because like my closet's going anywhere, you know.
Right, it's something that you can do and have fun, and you match it to the books that you promote, and essentially you're creating art out of art. Two forms. You've got the fashion art, the book art, the stories that you love, and then the pictures that you do. And I noticed over time, when I first stumbled on you and first started following you, a lot of your pictures were almost like dreamscapes. You would take pictures of yourself with the book, and your eyes would be closed and your hair would be flowing, almost like you were floating away with the story. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, lately I haven't seen that style as much. Was that deliberate?
You know, what I noticed, so my husband is the person who takes all my photos, and he's like, I noticed, like, he's so bizarre because he pretends like he doesn't pay attention to anything that's going on, but like he makes these observations. And it was like in the middle of Women's History Month, he's like, do you know that this is the first month you haven't done any pictures of you laying down on the ground? Because they were all like, it was all like a sheet on the ground, and I'd lay down and kind of do these things. And he's like, I'm wondering if somehow you're feeling like empowered because it's Women's History Month. And I was like, that's very thought. And I don't know, it's like that's stuck with me, and I haven't done those as much anymore. And then I've gone to do a few of them, and I'm like, have I done the, like, I don't know, like I doubt my, like your own worst critic, and I just wonder, like, have I done it too much? You know, should I try to do it again? I've done a few, and like they don't feel as inspired anymore. So I don't know, I guess I've maybe grown past it. Just not to say that I won't go back to it, but right now I'm super into standing up in front of my bookshelf. So here we are.
There you are. And you know, I think a lot of people want to connect with an audience and have the followers and share what they love. So that has essentially become the fairy tale for a lot of people. What would you tell somebody who wants to build a following, either in the Bookstagram world or even beyond, in terms of having a unique message? Because you've hit some milestone numbers of followers.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, I've been on here for a long time, and I meet people all the time who I'm like, this is your first year and you have 5,000 followers. I was like, I don't even think I had 5,000 followers until earlier this year, and I've been on here for 5 years. So I think the first thing is definitely don't compare yourself to other people. And I think do what you want to do. Like, that's the most important thing. It sounds like very simplistic, but I find that when I was trying to like fulfill some checkbox or like do something that I thought that was expected of me, it's like, even if the number hit, it's like I never felt there was like the sense of dissatisfaction. And I find now I kind of write what I want and post what I want, and that I find much more satisfaction in what I'm doing when I do what I want to do. And the numbers don't matter as much. All these types of things don't matter as much. That I think social media kind of primes your head to do a little bit. And you can escape that a little bit, I think, by really doing what you want. And then being patient. I think that a lot of people want to rush to some number. And like, I hate to tell you, but even at, 10,000 followers, it's like, I look at people with 20 and 30,000 and I'm like, well, my God, like, always looking, you're always looking for the next thing. And like, you're never going to be satisfied with the number of followers you have or the number of likes that you have. So just do what you like and the rest will follow.
Yeah, I had an author tell me, an author friend of mine who was also in news. And when I published my first book, she's like, enjoy the moment. I'm like, oh, I enjoy it. Of course I will. And she goes, no. I thought I was too, but it's really easy to look to the next thing and say, I want a bigger deal. I want to have a bestseller. I want to make as much as that person. I want to be as popular. So it's really, there's definitely a repeated message from all of our guests here on Find Your Fairy Tale that says, don't look at what other people are doing. Just focus kind of on, like, eye on your own prize.
Yeah, and I think it's like a discipline you have to teach yourself, because I think especially here where, like, you follow other people and you're seeing what other people are doing, it's like you mentally are somehow comparing yourself to what they're doing. And like, I see all sorts of accounts that are just so beautiful, but it's like, I don't have the patience to do that. I can't do that. I don't even know how to do what some people are doing. I'm constantly in awe here. And so I use it more as like an inspiration of like how, like, I like that. I don't think I can do it, but how do I do my take on that? Or what do I take on that I add to my pictures and stuff? So
What's the end goal then? I mean, you said that you started to realize that you liked books and then you wanted to connect with your own heritage. So
Right.
the end goal, if you could change something in the publishing industry, there's such a movement now to introduce, more voices, own voices. For somebody who's watching now who's not as familiar, how would you describe the own voices movement?
So I think it actually started like almost the exact similar year, and maybe even a few years before I started like the Own Voices thing. So Own Voices are books that are written by people who have like that, who are from that background or identify with that identity in that particular way. So if
Yeah.
Voices Latinx is written by someone who's Latinx and things like that. It gets a little complicated, almost because it's like, people can almost seem to representation, I think, by saying like own voices and things. So it can be a little tough, but like, I mostly look for like Black, Indigenous, people of color, BIPOC, authors, and that are writing books about, like their experiences or with characters that are from their heritage or background or race or whatever. And so that's mostly what's going on. I mean, it's still in publishing, it's still, that representation isn't there 100%. Like they can still always be working and doing better, I think. But there's been some great movements. The We Need Diverse Books is a huge movement. And they have very much been there for education, for getting these voices out into the publishing industry, and also to diversify the publishing industry itself, because a lot of publishing is white. So there's a push all around, and it's a large system, and I think that the change is happening. It's just happening very slowly, I think.
It's interesting. I was talking to actor and author Malik Pancholi about diversity and the need for it in TV and film and books. And so what we were discussing was, when does it fall upon the artist and when is it the duty of the gatekeeper? And in many ways, I think with publishing, because authors tend to support each other in a kind of unique way, we treasure each other's writing, and sure, there's going to be competitive people everywhere, right? But in general, we try to hold each other up. And so I've seen a beautiful movement in the young adult world where the artists are supporting fellow artists who are pushing for diversity. They're celebrating the books that are own voices, perhaps even more than the gatekeepers, than the big publishers. We're holding up each other in a way. But I don't know that you can move the needle except from the top down.
I do agree with that. I think that publishing, there's statistics, Lee and Low Books, Lee and Low, Lee and Low Books, they do like diversity every year in publishing, and they talk about not only what's published, but like what publishing itself looks like. And I think the last statistic I saw was like, in general, like over 85% of the people that work in publishing are white. And so you can have all these calls from the outside, but you need to also pull people up to the table that are making those decisions, that are judgment calls on what books are going to be published, because bookstagrammers can scream all day long about these diverse titles, but if they're not being published at a rate that represents what the general population is, then it's never going to be equitable. I don't think. Right. And marketing dollars too, I think, is a big deal for publishing. Publishing really, it seems like there are like they focus on a core, at least like social media and the ads that I see and stuff. It's like there's cores of books that they will focus on, but it's like there's midlist authors, there's backlist authors, and like what happens like after a book is published, like where does the book go into the ether, whatever, and like why do I always see the same books over and over again from publishers and things like that. So that's another thing in my contrarian attitude that makes me like do books. It's like, but I want to, I want to support other books with what I do.
Yeah, yeah, and I think too, to put yourself out there and say this is a book that I love. We also talk about the dragons of doubt, slaying the dragons, and beyond the publishing industry, just to put yourself out there. I know that you've talked about it. You've been pretty open about how sometimes, and I can relate to this too. You just don't want to be seen. You're like you put yourself out there. You want the connection, but there are some days where it's like, no, no, no. I'm tired today. Don't look. But then you have an audience that's waiting for you.
Yeah, it's not as direct as what you do, which, it's like I see you and I'm like, I don't know how, like I don't know how she does it with like that energy and like how you approach your work. Like I admire it so much. Like I will watch you like, just to see how like you interact and stuff. But it's different when it's the written word. But like I do always feel like I want to share, and it's difficult sometimes. And I try not to beat myself up if I can't share for whatever reason. I'm like, I always go back to, this is my hobby.
Yeah.
Like this is my hobby, and like I have to like calm down about it sometimes. But I think like, especially like this summer, like, everyone's at home. There's this huge social justice movement happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I wanted to talk. Like I felt like I wanted to say things, and I felt like I wanted to work it out in a place where was safe, not just for me, but for other people that were coming and talking to me and things like that. And like, that was a really nice sense of community. And I think that's what keeps me talking, is the sense of community that happens on Bookstagram. There's like a very certain special magic that happens between book lovers, like the way you can connect. You love the same books, and you see a lot of similarities in people that you maybe otherwise would never have met if it wasn't for this Bookstagram community. And so there's a special like alchemy to it all, and it's like that's what kind of keeps me always coming back, even when I'm tired, even when this or that. It's like I still want to say something, or I still have something queued up, and it's like, let me just share that. It's like that'll feel good to like interact with certain people and things like that.
No, I totally agree. That's where I get my energy. Even when I am tired and I plop down in this chair, the second I'm talking to someone like you, or whether it's the news, or all of a sudden I start feeling that rejuvenation of ideas flowing. It's hard though to balance. You call it your hobby. So I think a lot of people who are searching for their fairy tale and trying to work it into, the real stuff that life is made of, all of the duties and demands that we have. It's like, oh, I don't have time for that. So how do you squeeze it into your day job?
So I am very fortunate that I work for myself. So I have my own business.
So you're your own boss. You're like, are you slacking again doing that book blogger thing?
I don't get fired necessarily. And so I kind of just work it around my schedule. And then I schedule out my days, like my work days. So I know the blocks of time that I am completely unavailable. And then I forgot what it's called. I do the thing where you work for 30 minutes and then you take like a 10-minute break or whatever.
Yes.
Do you know the name of it?
I know exactly what you're talking about. Now I can't think of the name either. But yeah, it's a whole work process that like, if you give yourself that downtime, you can focus more intensely and be more productive.
And so like, I'll just kind of fill the downtime sometimes. Like I'll work for 30 and then take 45 off or whatever. And if I'm not like in meetings or whatever, and then like I'll just kind of squeeze in a little Bookstagram here, a little Bookstagram there. It's like, it's fun because this technology, I feel like I'm learning it constantly. Yeah. I feel like there's always something new to learn. So, and I feel like I get into like these little trends and things that I like. So right now I really, it's like I'm trying to learn how to do reels or whatever. So I try to do those. Yeah. An entire day to myself because they take forever to do. But like, I just squeeze it in around the really important things. And of course there's going to be like emergencies and things that take precedent, but it's something that I want to do. It's something that makes me feel connected to the book community. I can't go out to book club. I can't go to an author.
Right. So here we are.
Yeah. So here I am. Yep.
Are you surprised by how many people have listened to your message, and do you get notes and comments that just really keep you going, where they thank you for putting diverse books on the radar?
Yeah, I get a lot of direct messages from people, and it always strikes me if it's either a student or a teacher who's like, thank you so much for this list or this recommendation. It was the perfect ad for like my school bookshelf, and like that always like it makes me feel like I've won the lottery of like Bookstagram, because it's like, oh, like I actually thought that book might make a difference. A teacher read it and was like, I know the perfect student for that or whatever, and I'm gonna put. So it's things like that keep going, and interactions that make it very worthwhile to know what I'm doing. I mean, a lot of people say like in the comments like, oh, thanks for putting this on my radar, but as all book lovers know, we're all like 10,000 books behind and things like that, but little personal messages that really get me.
So on that note, how do you read all the books that you do, and why did you start reading? You know, as a kid, why did it just become such a part of the fabric of how you spend your days?
So my parents owned a grocery store, and like they couldn't come pick me up at school until like half an hour later. It happened like in middle school when I went to a different school, and it like minutes. And my parents, they're immigrants, and they were so scared of me being like sitting outside I went to a private school, but they were so afraid of me sitting outside that they're like, we have to find you an activity to do. And I ended up working in the school library. Like, just like our school librarian was maybe not the kindest person.
Oh,
like
no.
She was our biggest fan, and I was like, I guess I'll do that. So I started working in the library, and I had always kind of escaped to the library as a default, but it became the place, like she let me go in her office and eat at lunch if I didn't want to sit in the lunchroom, and like with her after school. I'd come into school early sometimes and like just go in the library, and like she just let me like put put books away, like, shelve everything. Like there were certain books we weren't allowed to touch or whatever. So I'd shelve and organize everything. I learned the Dewey Decimal System and things like that. And it wasn't a big library, but I think like it just became a habit at some point for me. And I went to that school from middle school until I graduated high school. And like, I would just randomly drop in the library, like, even like my senior year when there was like nothing going on, like during the school day, I just pop in and just hang out in there because it was like a nice quiet spot. And the librarian and I, we became friends, and
you melted her. You won her over.
I killed her with kindness, if you will. And I don't know, just being in the library and being around books has always been a big deal. Like I remember my mom taking me to go get a library card for the first time when I was like in second grade. And like, she was like, you cannot lose these books. They're very important. Other people have to get, and like, I don't know, it was just something that's been ingrained in me, and that by coincidence I got kind of stuck into, but it became something that I love. So, I will say I walked away from books after I graduated college. I didn't read probably for a few years after I graduated college. And then I very slowly kind of went back to reading. And then I became like, and then I read more than I ever have read before, as though trying to make up for lost time.
How many books do you read a week?
So it's one, so I would only read one book a week. If I didn't have all the pressure to read arcs. I read like 2 books a week, and then I probably listen to 1 to 2 audiobooks a week. So
4 books a week is what is going into your magical mind.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's definitely, I mean, to be able to absorb that level of stories into your imagination while you're getting everything else done, that's a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot. I try to write down, like I can't walk away from every book like knowing everything. And I swear to you, like even when I didn't read this much, I have a terrible book memory. I'm like, what was that character's name? What happened? What was the end? Like I've always been like that. I've been terrible at retaining like, what happens in a book. But what did I want to say about that? But I keep like a little journal, and I just write like my favorite quotes, and that always like brings me back like to the books that I love, that I really loved, and things like that. So
do you have an all-time favorite? It's probably different books for different reasons, but if there's one book that you're just, you grab someone by the shoulders and say, you have to read this.
So I always, that's a really tough one. So today I'm going to say Jandy Nelson's The Sky is Everywhere.
I haven't read that yet. So grab my shoulders. Tell me why.
Okay, so I don't even know that I can make, like, I don't even know that I could give it a good elevator speech.
Yeah.
So, so it's gonna be made into a movie. I just heard that a few weeks ago. It's been out for a long time, but it's about a girl who, the book starts and she's in mourning and she lives with her grandmother. Her sister has died. And it's about her dealing with grief and loss and sisterhood and finding first love and messing it all up tremendously. And then Jandy Nelson, I really don't understand. Like when I read interviews from her, she said she had gone through a great loss. And I think that's why like the way she's dealt with grief in this book is incredible. But she also like, there's little bits of poetry that's part of the story that's into it. And it's just, I don't know, it's just magic. I haven't read it in a long time. I haven't read it in like 4 or 5 years. I used to like reread it like once a year. But I don't know, it's just a story that somehow captured like every emotion from like laughter to love to crying. Like it captures everything for me for some reason.
Yeah.
Like it's been one of my favorite books.
Okay, it's going on my list.
All right.
That's what's so amazing about what the influence that book bloggers have now. I was saying while we were getting started that it used to be, I remember opening up the Sunday paper and reading the book column, the new books that were out, in the Sunday paper, or different magazines that would review them. And now you can really get the freshest take, I think, the immediate take with the book blogger community, because I mean, you're reading 16 books a day, 4 books a week, but still, that's a level that I think you can't compete with.
I know, it's crazy. And then you're watching everyone around you read different books and you're like, I've got to read faster. Like I can't keep up with it all. So it can be a little intimidating. That's again another thing that I have to turn off sometimes, is that I can't read every book, because sometimes I really push myself and be like, because there's people that read 365 books a year, and I'm like, if I get like 200 books a year, I would be so proud of myself, but I'll never get anywhere near that. Like I think it was like 160 one year is what I got to. So we'll see.
What's the happily ever after for you? Do you ever want to write a book? Do you want to have where does it go from here?
That's a very interesting question. I've been asking myself that pretty regularly. And I have 2 outlines of books that I'm working on right now, which I wanted to be a writer when I was a kid, and then I stopped, and I have my business now or whatever. But now the older I get, the more I think I want to go back to it. So I'm working on a couple outlines right now of books.
I have a feeling you can't love reading as much and get all the stories in your head as much as you do without having a story of your own and a voice that you've probably, I think we all pull from the authors that we love and we say, okay, that's how I want to communicate. So I'm excited. Do you want to say what it's about or no?
No.
I didn't think so. We keep that stuff close to the vest, right?
Oh, I feel like it's like my child, like deep inside my heart.
Right. Oh, of course.
And I wanted to do NaNoWriMo, but then I'm like too scared to even like go to the website and look at it. Like I was like, should I try? I was like, I know I'm gonna fail, but I should like at least do something like where it challenges me in a different way. I like to always like be learning or doing something different. And so I'm like, is it time for NaNoWriMo? So I have a few more days to decide, and I might sign up for it. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's funny. I was, look, our friend and fellow author here, Kelly Coon says, do it.
I know.
All right, Kelly. Did you not hear the woman say she reads 4 books a week? Kelly. You can do it. I actually was thinking, I'm just wrapping up, my next manuscript now. And I was like, I wonder if I could take one of those other ideas that was percolating and do this challenge. And for those of you who don't know what it is, it's basically, can you write a whole novel in a month? And can you, and there's this whole community that comes together to support you doing it, and how many words you need to be writing. And, then there'll be like the 5 a.m. club getting up and writing in the early morning, and then the night owls. So it's a lot of support. But then I was like, are you crazy? Like, just take a breath. You just finished, another book. Take a breath. But I think people like you, people like me, we sit there and say, oh yeah, but I have a minute. What am I going to do with it?
and I think that that's like keeping busy is a big thing for me on some level. So it's
Yeah.
like, and like learning and like challenging myself. It's like, it's something I've always wanted to do. And so since I got this idea in my head, it's like, I can't shake it. And I'm like, I can try to write Instagram posts and I can try to do this, but it, you know, it's so limiting. It's like 2,200 characters or whatever. And it's like, I can't do what I want to do without, I think, writing it in a book form. So I think that's where we might end up. And, you know,
Well,
for
that's
good,
exciting.
whatever, you know, it's like at least go through the process and I can say, hey, I tried to do it. You know what I mean? So
I think, yeah, I think that you'd have a lot of people really excited to hear the story that you had to tell. Do you have a favorite fairy tale?
so I think that I don't know a lot of fairy tales. Like I know Disney versions of,
Right, right.
but like I
Oh, the
never.
Disney ones. I'm going to just tell you, Carmen, stay with the Disney ones because I think my scary fairy tale book is somewhere I was using to write. But the original versions are so dark and depressing that I read them and I say, wait a second, why do we love these and why do we think that they end with happily ever after? We morphed them into that.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I just saw this thing because I've always kind of gone back and forth on Cinderella because I was like, she's so kind. And I was like, she gets such a great, you know, she gets such a great ending at the end or whatever. And I just watched something about how like Cinderella is all about like Cinderella having agency. And like, if I could mash together like Cinderella and like a lot of feminist thought, I think it would be like right there. I love the notion of like, someone who's incredibly kind and good and like, you know, she's virtuous in this way and like how she kind of has to struggle and fight and like gets these little pushes ahead to like, I don't think it's where she necessarily wants to be, but like to escape from like the hardship of it. You know, I don't know. Cinderella's always appealed to me. I know it's very basic.
Yeah, and she connects with nature, and you know, in the original one, she wishes on a tree, which is just so pretty, and the whole idea of a fairy godmother too. You know, one version is the magic tree, one is the fairy godmother. You know, but still, the idea that wishes can come true, I think, is so important. And we talk a lot on Find Your Fairy Tale about the power of making a wish and positive thinking. Have you found in your goals that you have to envision what you want to happen and have the right mentality, or that energy just doesn't take you where you want to be?
I think you can be in your own head and be your own worst critic and like you'll just kind of you'll see everything kind of go down. And so I always kind of envision, look up, and I make lists and I cross things off my list. And like I'm an obsessive list maker. So I find that as long as I'm still making lists, I'm like moving towards, you know, the goal that I have in mind. And so even if even if I fall back, even if I have to go back and redo a bunch of things on my list, I find that I'm always kind of moving forward. So that's I kind of try to keep it together.
I'm laughing because sometimes when I start lists, I also have to make lists, and if I don't, I forget everything. Everything just falls apart. But I'll put things on the list that I know I've already done just so I can scratch them off to feel a little bit better about myself, even though I've already done it.
You like take a shower, you know, put socks on, and then, you know, and then it kind of goes from there. And, you know, you have to do those things, I think, to incentivize yourself too. To bring on like that sense of empowerment so that you can, you know, challenge yourself to these things that you want to do that are your dreams, you know?
To find the dreams, if you were to finish the sentence, you know, to find your fairy tale, you need to. And I can kind of pull some of the things that you've already said about being true to yourself and tuning out, you know, the outside influences. But if you were to finish that sentence, to find your fairy tale.
To find your fairy tale, you need to believe in yourself and you need to be willing to challenge yourself.
I think that's the truth. Challenge yourself. I saw a cool quote floating around the other day that said, you are not everything that you can be, and you know it. And I was like, ooh, don't you tell me that I know it, because I do. Like you sit there and you know like what you're capable of and what you do in a day, and if you really are challenging yourself or if you're coasting a little bit. So it was the total kick that I needed to say, all right, are you settling for anything at any point in your life? Is it time to up the ante? So I love that, to challenge yourself. Believe in yourself, but challenge yourself.
Yeah.
So
neither of which is easy, but you know, it's like you take it step by step and day by day, you know?
For sure. Carmen, I can't thank you enough for waiting for me for 15 minutes while my phone decided to be my own little personal dragon today that I needed to figure
Oh,
out what was going on. But what can we look for next from you? And I want anybody who's watching now, they can find you Tomes and Textiles, and it's just so awesome because the pictures, whether it takes me a while to even find the book sometimes, I just look at the colors and the patchwork, and then I'm like, okay, what are we talking about today? And then I'll read the whole description. But it's just a wonderful, colorful page to look at.
thank you. I love color, so I'm glad that that's something that comes across. There's a few things I have in the works, and I don't know that I'm not prepared to say any of them, but I'm probably going to join NaNoWriMo now. NaNoWriMo.
Okay. Wait, if you do, should I too? Because we're both super busy, and this would be the craziest, most ridiculous thing that we should not add to our platters in a million years.
I think if 2020 taught us anything, is that very short, and we just need to like pile on all the tasks and find the ones that bring us joy and do it. I'll sign on and see if we can do it, and if you sign
I
on,
will too. I will too. And I will, yeah, I'm going to give you, I'll take a picture and I'm going to give you like a high five on the Instagram stories. Oh, there is our good friend, our ex-friend, no, I'm kidding, Kelly Coon again, saying, do it, do it, do it. All right, Kelly, I'm in, Kelly.
all right, I'll do it.
We're in. I think we're gonna pull this off, and it's an exciting way because you know what, it's what you said. Even if you don't finish the whole book, there's going to be more words there than what you started, and it's a huge jump start, and it's a really supportive community. So we'll have to circle back and catch up and talk about how we're doing, like separately from Find Your Fairy Tale or anything. Just kind of do little check-ins. It'll be really fun.
That would be wonderful, Sorboni. I'd love it.
All right. Well, I will see you on the flip side of things.
I will see you too. And thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Oh my gosh, anytime. You come hang out and talk about magical fairy tales and goals and dreams. And I can't wait to read the book that you write in just one tiny month. Challenge accepted.
All right, honey, take care. Bye.
Bye, everybody.